Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another book review. But before we get into that book review, I would just like to start by saying Happy 2026 to all of you beautiful people. You're all so beautiful. Welcome to the new year. So now, let's get into the book review. Dalek by Robert Sherman. Oh, I love this. Honestly, I wasn't quite sure when I first started reading it because a lot of the material in the book Dalek is very similar to what we've seen in the essentially what we've seen in the episode. However, Robert Sherman absolutely blows us away. He gives us more depth to characters such as Henry Van Staten, Adam, the Dalek itself, and most importantly, he kind of gives us an in-depth understanding of all these characters on a more unbiased level. So let's start with our main man himself, Henry Van Staten. What is Henry's motives? Well, Henry is a collector. Well, at least he tries to be. Henry has so much power behind him, so much money, and we start off by learning about Edward Van Staten. Edward Van Staten, his father was like a multi-millionaire, and Henry takes on his legacy. But Edward doesn't agree with Henry's outgoing views on alien artifacts and making millions through a underground base archive. He believes that everything his son's going to do is pointless. The only person who ever believed in Henry himself was Otto. Otto was his German butler, and essentially Otto tries to get the young boy to look at the stars, give him something to do, because his father didn't give a clear outline on what he should be doing for Henry's birthday, because his father was never around. So Otto tries to make up for it by giving Henry a telescope and letting him look up at the stars at the universe itself. But what Otto doesn't realise is what Henry is going to do next. After being dismissed by Henry's father, Otto pretty much goes on to just go back to his own regular life of unemployment and a lot of other jazz. Meanwhile, Henry goes on to strive to manipulate the president, manipulate private collectors, and steal as much technology from outer space as he can. However, there's one piece of technology that he was warned not to take, and this is what he nicknames the Metaltron. Now, the Metaltron, of course, as we know it from the TV episode, is the Dalek, and the Dalek has crashed to Earth after escaping a war. Now, the other person we need to let you know about is Simmons. Who was Simmons before he worked for Henry Van Staten? Simmons was a murderer. Yeah, no way to sugarcoat it. Simmons was a cold-hearted murderer who, ever since he was a kid, liked picking on people, hurting people, and essentially Simmons goes to prison for it. Henry releases him from prison because he needs someone cold-hearted who can work in his basement with the Metaltron, and if anyone gets out of order, Simmons won't think twice to break his neck. Then we have Diana Goddard. Diana Goddard is a wannabe cop who essentially is undercover the whole time in Henry Van Staten's facility. She was raised by her father, who was a really good cop, but her father gets killed in the line of duty, so she tries to pass on his legacy. However, when she starts working for Henry Van Staten, she finds herself in a situation in which she's not quite sure how to solve. She knows that she's got to get to Henry. She's got to get him arrested, because everything that he is doing down in the basement of his underground base is just appalling. Then we have Adam Mitchell. Adam Mitchell is a young boy from Milton Keynes, and essentially Adam chose for 2 or 3 years when he was a child to not talk at all. Soon his parents would go on to discover that this is because he is a child genius and he has the ability to think way beyond what other people think. He knew that this would make him an outsider, and eventually he would get hired by Henry Van Staten. But little did Henry Van Statten realise that Adam had actually been storing a lot of his weapons that he had been finding down in the base under his bed. Adam was taken down one night to see the Metaltron, which we would later go on to learn is a Dalek, all as a bit of a prank by a lot of the workers, just to see if he could get it to talk. Adam comes up with a really stupid theory that essentially he believes that the Dalek is talking through Morse code with its plunger. However, the truth being that the Dalek just doesn't want to talk to anyone. Well, not exactly that it doesn't want to talk to anyone. It doesn't want to talk to anyone unless it's the Doctor. Now, a bit of further backstory that we get is the fact that the Dalek has met the Doctor before. But when the Dalek met the Doctor before, he was an old man on the field of battle at the fall of Arcadia. The Dalek had the opportunity to kill the Doctor, but for some reason it chose not to. All of its fellow comrades had died in battle, and the Dalek was powerless to know what to do. And eventually it shot its weapon system so much that it kind of just powered down. Throughout the course of this story, we keep getting repeated the same story. There's a boy on a hill. There's a boy on a hill. And eventually, by the end of this book, we come to learn what Robert Sherman is on about. Robert Sherman is not only telling the story of the Dalek, the murderer, the killer, the cop, the boy genius. Robert Sherman is talking about all of them as a collective, comparing each and every one of their experiences to the innocence of a child to the uninnocence broken by adulthood. The Dalek's life was stolen away from it. It's described in one chapter of the book as a young boy who learns to hate everyone who has freedom, who has the opportunity to live a full and beautiful life. It learns to hate everything that it should love. And eventually it does, because it's locked inside of a tank and taught that its only mission is to be a soldier. That is what it is. That is what it always will be. It's a mutation created for war. But even though the Dalek comes to learn all of its commanders or strategists as father, soon it begins to break because it realizes that it doesn't quite know whether it serves its purpose at all. And so when the Dalek sees the Doctor for the first time, even though it has the opportunity to kill him, it also doesn't. And suddenly it feels afraid. The Dalek was taught that it would never feel fear, that it couldn't feel fear, and yet here it was, down in the basement looking at the eyes of its enemy once again, and yet it can't seem to find the power to kill him. Throughout the course of this book, there's only one person the Dalek ever truly killed, and that's the scientist who claimed himself to be the Doctor. Well, that and all the half a ton of other soldiers that we see get killed on screen. But the very first murder committed by the Dalek, realistically, is the scientist who claims himself to be the Doctor. The Dalek knows they're lying, and the easiest way to test that is to test their DNA. And as soon as it realises that, it decides to burn them alive. Henry Van Statten goes from such a power-crazed, maniacal, rich businessman to a scared little boy. And one of the great juxtapositions, I think, in this book is the idea that Henry Van Statten soon realises that he is the Dalek. He is the Dalek. He's the boy so afraid of everything that he has to experiment on it. He has to hurt it. And eventually, by the end of this book, Henry Van Statten is driven to wipe his own mind. He ends up dribbling in an office and gets arrested by Goddard. But this is only because Henry soon realises he has no power. His whole collection, everything he's worked for all these years, and everything came to nothing. He soon begins to ask himself the question, what was the point? The one question put to him by the Doctor very early on in this story. So Doctor Who, Dalek by Robert Sherman. What do I give this book overall? I love this book. It's beautiful, it's brilliant, and I love that it gives us more context into the characters that we may not have known too much about on screen. And for that reason, I give it a solid 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next book review. Till then, stay beautiful, happy new year, and have a great day.